I'd love to discuss, Charles, what you think as someone who's been involved in local issues. What do you think are some practical steps that people can start to take to get a little bit more engaged with their own local politics, whether that be county or city or even just state? What's some practical ways where you can start to get engaged?
Well, generally, the first thing I would tell you is go to a city council meeting and or a county commission meeting and just sit and watch. Go to a few of them. Number one, when you first walk in and you sit down, yeah, especially around election time, they all get nervous like, oh my God, who is this person? Is he in my district? Is he planning on running? And, they all get nervous. But you need to sit and, get, uh, go watch a few of these meetings and look at some of the agenda stuff that they have, and then just watch and look around your area and see if you have any local groups, whether it be a an activist group. My my town has a local activist group, and we have several throughout the state of Tennessee. And see if you can find some of those groups and just go to some of the meetings. If not, find a Republican meeting or a women's Republican group. There's even libertarian groups out there that you can go find and go sit in on those meetings and listen to what they have to say, and you will start learning very quick what's going on.
Hmm. Yeah. Have you found a lot of help with local media by chance? Because I know for me, when I first started to get a little bit more focused in on my local politics, that's an area that I really tend to see a hole. That's for sure. There seems to be a void where that maybe could be. I'm wondering if you have a different experience.
Um, Local media is just as it's not on the grand scale as the national media, but it's just as corrupt.
Hmm.
Um, it doesn't matter if it's print media or whatever. They're usually part of the driving force behind, like here where I live, uh, the local newspaper is run by the guy who oversees the industrial board.
Hmm.
So, he controls the media, and he controls what's put out there. And basically, the governing powers here know who he is, and they dance to what he says.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and um, I know that there's obviously a lot of things that can be said about the fact that local issues are not nearly as attractive as the national issues. It's really fun to be um, caught up in some of the national movements because they tend to focus on the big issues that everyone can familiarize themselves with pretty easily. Whereas some of the local issues tend to be a little bit more nitty gritty, insider baseball a little bit. Um, so, what do you think is maybe a good rule of thumb? And we'll turn this over to both of you as well for um, balancing being aware of national issues while maybe being more aware or at least equally aware of the local issues.
Yeah, I mean, just glancing at national headlines, you don't really actually have to read those articles because at some point you're just reading the same thing over and over again. I think it's just for me what it was just how I framed things in my own mind. Um, in a weird way, even though a lot of the headlines are grabbing, they grab you, and there's a lot of conversation on the internet around the big topics. Majority of them, like 90% of them, don't actually affect you and your city, and even your state. What does affect you is like he was talking about, is your city council. Is just keeping an eye on those folks, seeing what they're up to, and meeting them, and I mean, just he had talked about something interesting, which was just you physically being there at a city council meeting is sometimes enough to kind of at least start that shift in someone's mind of, oh, okay, like they care, like I'm being watched. And so even just through that type of pressure, they might think twice before voting for a certain legislation. They may actually spend a little bit more time getting a feel for the community. You're most impacted by your town, your state, your city, those types of things. Like my city council here is kind of full of knuckleheads, and like it's the reason why I will be renting for a long time. And because they're not looking at legislation that will help make housing more affordable, like across the board, for people that they claim to want to help and represent.
Yeah. Well, if you look at, you can turn on the news and you get 24/7 of national and world news. If you turn on your local news, you get a snippet of what's going on at the state, and then a little bit of weather and sports, and maybe the shooting down on Main Street in Knoxville or something. And that's about all you get. So you really don't know what's going on. But if you want to look at the local impacts, let's kind of look at that. And I can give you a little bit of a rundown, just like what's going on here where I live. We have some powers to be that wanted a new community center. Okay. So they pushed for this for a long time. And so they decided to go spend about $36 million on a community center. And what does that do? That property tax increase was 25 cents per hundred of your land value. And they spend that as well. That's only about, for average mortgage of $150,000. That's, maybe $20, $25, in a year's time. What they failed to tell everyone is the small portion of property taxes is actually the landowner, the homeowner. They don't tell you that the people that owns the grocery stores pays a huge portion. The industry in the area gets raped with high taxes. And so those kind of issues usually ends up raising the property taxes. And when you have industry that's competing on a global market, those kind of cost increases will eventually end up causing them to leave. That's the effect that these things have, but everybody's focused on Washington, and they don't see what the local impact of a property tax alone just for a community center could do. So that was our city government. Now our county government has turned around and spent $100 million for a jail and justice center. So the county people's property taxes will eventually go up because they say, we're going to have school repairs and stuff. And if you live in the city, you're going to have a county property tax and a city property tax increase. Well, guess where all the industrial parks are? And most industry is inside the city limits. So they're going to get the double whammy. So not focusing on the local issue where you have the most control, where you can go to a city council meeting. You can't go to the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. every time they have a meeting, but you can go to a city council meeting. You can go to a county commission meeting. You can actually go knock on their door because they live in your city and county and talk to these people. That's where you have the most control, and that's usually where it has the most impact on your life.